We began with 5 golden tickets, like 5 lucky bolts of lightning ready to strike without notice at any point on the map. No one knew where, no one knew when the first one would hit. But as you all know, last night we got our answer. While we in America slept, the first golden ticket was found in the small town of Dusselheim, Germany. We've been waiting several hours for the follow-up story, and we're finally ready with a live report.
Okay, retro go. Let's go.
Hello and welcome. Welcome and hello. This is Wait, You Haven't Seen? It's a show where we talk about movies and specifically talk about a movie at least one of us has never seen before. I'm your host, Travis, aka TV's Travis. This is episode number 295, and our movie this week is 1971's Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. And here to talk with me about it, because he had never seen it before, from the Horsegirls podcast, it's Tim. Tim, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I am doing quite well. So you hadn't seen this movie before. Were you familiar with Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, Willy Wonka, all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, it's kind of hard to miss it. It's such a big piece of popular culture, and after watching the movie, it turns out that I had seen a lot of the movie, just in pieces and in chunks here and there and everywhere. But yeah, that was one of the movies. There's a couple of movies that I have that people, you just get the most shocked faces when you say that you haven't seen it.
Mm-hmm.
And this was definitely high up on that list.
Yeah, for anybody, like, I would say I would get shocked like that for anybody over the age of like 25 that says they haven't seen this, because in that era, you just sort of accidentally run into it. That's how I first saw it. I was young, but I first just ran into it on like WGN on a Saturday afternoon. And I think I want to say the first time I saw it, I was like a third of the way in and watched it. And then the next time I saw it was available on TV, I watched the whole thing. So you hadn't seen this one. Had you seen any iteration of Willy Wonka?
Nope, not a one. I guess because I'd never seen the first one, I just had no interest in watching the other ones.
Sure, that's fair.
And I'm sure, like, to your point of it being on TV or something, like, I would bet $1,000 that had happened to me at some point. And then knowing me, and especially young me, the minute somebody started singing, I would have just been like, nope, I'm out, I'm done. And it would have gone right back off.
Smoking grass.
So not really a musicals fan, huh?
Well, okay. So young Tim was dead set against them. And I don't know what set me on that path. But then, I'll watch a movie like this and I'll be like, well, you know what? That was pretty good. And then I've been to a couple of theater productions recently and I leave and I'm like, well, you know what? That was pretty good too. So I think I might be more of a fan than I ever gave myself credit for. It was like one of those things where you just assume you're not going to like it. And so you don't.
And especially I find that with when you're younger, like you either grow up loving musicals or when you're younger, you're like, I don't like musicals. And then for me, I had a note actually to myself of like, you know what? I do like musicals. I just don't like bad musicals.
Yeah. Well, okay. And because I've never really consumed musicals, I don't know what a bad musical is. Like, I don't have a clue, but I get this curated list from my friends of like, hey, you need to go see Hadestown. And then I go see Hadestown and I'm like, man, that was fantastic. And then we went and saw Sweeney Todd and I was like, man, that was so good. So I haven't had to pick my own and suffer through the bad ones.
Yeah. I think part of it too is, for me anyway, I know, musicals to me always gave a certain type of movie. And I realized as I got older, no. Number one, musical can be anything. It's not, restricted, but also I found that I do like musical theater. I just thought I didn't. It was kind of like, I went through a long time in my life where I wouldn't eat broccoli. I didn't like it as a kid. I had it a couple of times and I thought, I just don't like broccoli. And one time out at a restaurant, I didn't ask for it to be removed from my dish. And I'm like, well, I'm not sending it back because I was dumb. I'll just maybe eat around it, whatever. And I took one bite and I was like, holy crap, I like broccoli. And now, now I will fight people over broccoli. Like, And musicals kind of were that same thing. I didn't love them growing up, but I think too, I wasn't into being in musical theater when I was younger
Yeah.
because I can't sing at all.
Mm-mm.
Like, I'm terrible. And
Same.
so I never got into it in school, but then having more and more friends involved in music and musical theater, especially the local theater here, um, gave me a better appreciation for it. So,
Yeah.
you know,
I think having friends who are willing to try things has opened and willing to force me to try things
mhm,
has helped out a lot too.
yeah,
'Cause it has, it's been that same thing. I'm like, "Man, the last, like, 4 or 5 things that they've given to me, I've really enjoyed." I don't think I get to say that I just don't like musicals anymore.
yeah,
I think
I'm
I
the same way.
just
I
don't
can't say
like
it anymore.
trying new things.
Yes.
Mhm.
New things are scary. We don't like,
Yeah.
we fear change.
Mm.
Um, so now that you've watched Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, before we dive too far in, were you aware that this was based on a book?
Uh, I yes, because someone had told me that Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, the Johnny Depp version,
Mhm.
was this was the exact description I got from several people, is it's not as good, but it's closer to the book.
Okay.
And I'm like, "Well, I've never read the book. I don't know what that means." Well, actually, I've never seen the first one. I don't know what that means. This has gotten me nowhere.
What's really funny to me is that Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory is they changed the name, and because the book was Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
Mhm,
And then they make Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, and your main character is Charlie.
mhm.
And he's the focus and the driving force of the entirety of the story. And then Tim Burton's Charlie and the Chocolate Factory is more about Willy Wonka than it is about Charlie. Like, Charlie is the main character, but Willy Wonka is like the driving force of everything, and he gets all the flashbacks, and there's a lot more there. So I just always thought that was interesting. And they changed the name of this for marketing, um, because they wanted to do some candy tie-ins at
Nah,
the
that makes
time.
sense. Yeah.
So you've seen it now. Overall, what'd you
Mhm.
think?
I actually really enjoyed it. Uh, it it wasn't as musical as I thought it was going to be. There actually wasn't a ton of singing in
Mhm.
the whole movie. Um, and the events that happen that, you kind of learn about Veruca Salt and all these characters
Yeah.
just from hearing people make comments about it. But it just it had a lot more coherent message than I thought it was going to. And the Oompa Loompas were 1,000 times more judgmental than I thought they were gonna be, and I thought that was a ton of fun. But yeah, it was a fun movie.
It really is.
And
No,
it
it's based on the
yeah.
book Charlie and the Chocolate Factory by Roald Dahl.
Mhm.
And Roald Dahl wrote kids books, but he wrote
Yeah.
kids books that were a little bit dark.
That's what I was wondering. I was wondering if he was one of those. I forget the other author's name, but that, I didn't read any Roald Dahl books when I was younger, but there were authors that were kind of broken up into that category where they were, you know, for kids, but a little bit more mature in their themes.
Yeah, and a little darker. And it's sort of like, to me, Roald Dahl exists in that same branch of programming literature things for kids that, like, Jim Henson was a part of,
Mhm.
where they're not afraid to push the boundaries a little bit, scare kids, be a little bit darker than, like, super sanitized stuff, because kids can kind of take that.
Yeah.
Um, I also read, and I have no way to prove any of this, so I don't know if this is just people that had sour grapes or what. That Roald Dahl was a bit difficult as a person. Um,
Yeah.
maybe not. I don't know. There certainly were controversies around him and whatnot, but he wrote some pretty fantastic books, including things like the BFG, the Big Friendly Giant.
Yeah.
Um, oh, what were some other? James and the Giant Peach is a Roald Dahl. Um,
I didn't know that. Actually, I didn't know either too. That I'm familiar with the movies of those versions. I didn't know they were Roald Dahl books.
Yeah, I mean, same. His books, a lot of them have been adapted. The Witches is a Roald Dahl, and if you've ever seen that, that's a pretty freaky one. Um,
Mm-mm.
so some of his novels, James and the Giant Peach, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, The Fantastic Mr. Fox is a Roald Dahl book.
Really?
Yeah, He actually wrote a sequel to Charlie and the Chocolate Factory called Charlie and the Great Glass Elevator. There's also stuff that got made into other things that were adapted. The BFG, The Witches, Matilda is a Roald doll.
And all these
So
things that I'm familiar with, and I didn't realize that all. I knew he was I'll say a prolific author,
Mhm.
but I didn't know to this level.
yeah. Now, one interesting thing is he apparently hated this movie. Um, there are set photos of him on set, and he seemed to be not like having a good time with it. But once the movie came out, he did not like it. So he had started work on the screenplay for it, and then they ended up bringing in someone else to kind of work on the screenplay, and they made some changes. So one of the things was um, they added a couple of scenes with Charlie that weren't in the book. The fizzy soda was in the
Yeah.
book, but them actually drinking some of it and floating away wasn't. That was added in. And I'm trying to think what the other one was off the top of my head. And then a lot of Willy Wonka in this movie, his quotes, the literary quotes that he made, weren't part of the book. They were added. Oh, Slugworth. That's what it was. They took the character
Okay.
of Slugworth in the book is mentioned, but he's not like a main driving force of any kind.
Mhm.
And in
Mhm.
this, they sort of were like, well, we need a villain. So let's make it Slugworth trying to steal stuff.
Gotcha.
And they expanded that a little bit more. And apparently, Roald Dahl just did not like any of that at all. He didn't like there being changes made to his story. But I
The
think,
fizzy soda did feel like not like it didn't fit the overall theme of the story too, though.
yeah, well, part of it is because in the story, Charlie is effectively perfect. Like he has no flaws. And
Oh,
that's
okay.
sort of the idea, right? Like he's the good
Yeah.
kid amongst all the bad ones. And they sort of wanted to add that just to give him a little bit more dimension,
Okay.
which I'm fine with.
Yeah, I
Um,
can accept that.
but yeah, so one thing that I tend to forget when I don't watch this movie for a little while is how much time we spend before ever getting to the chocolate factory.
Yes.
Were you prepared for that, or did you think it would kind of be there
No.
right away?
Yeah, I thought that we'd spend a few minutes finding the golden ticket, and then that would kind of be it, but it seemed like a large chunk of the movie was before we ever got to the chocolate factory, and I didn't expect that at all.
Hmm.
And I didn't expect his story to be so like, it didn't come across as bleak as it probably was in the movie, but, 4 bedridden people in your house,
Right?
like, yeah, I it came across as he's not in the best situation, but when you sit and think about it, you're like, "Oh, man, that's terrible."
Yeah. Now in the book, his dad is not gone or dead. His father is around. He works at like a toothpaste factory, I think, or something like that. So the dad does exist here, but in the movie, you just got mom and Charlie and the
Mhm.
4 bedridden grandparents, which is rough because like Charlie's got to have a job and go to school.
Yeah,
He's got to have his
yeah.
paper route. But yeah, the 4 grandparents, the golden ticket. We spend a lot of time with the hysteria around Wonka and Wonka
Mhm.
mania and the golden tickets and all this kind of stuff, which is really interesting to think about the fact that this movie is over 50 years old now.
Right, right.
And even then we had that. Imagine that taking that idea and putting it today, the types of hysteria that you would see. It would be a TikTok trend, right?
It well, there's a sort of smaller version going on right now with a baseball card.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
There's a Pittsburgh Pirates pitcher who's got there's one baseball card floating around in the I've seen all these posts from, like, people who are willing to be the broker for selling the card. Celebrities are talking about hanging out with the person who finds the card, and I thought it was kind of a neat thing to watch happen, and even though it's not to the level that it was in Willy Wonka,
Right.
because it just doesn't baseball cards don't have the carry like they would have at one time, but it's still neat to watch it sort of live play out as I saw this movie for the first time.
Very, very true. Do you
Yeah.
think were something like this to be done today, the life cycle of it would be a lot shorter, I feel like, right?
I think so. I think so. I don't know that people have necessarily shorter attention spans, but I also feel like it would be hard to get something like this to play out for that long.
Hmm.
Like, they had these 5 golden tickets out, and it seemed like they were out for quite some time. It seemed to me if this was really something that was in the world's focus, they would be found a lot quicker.
Yeah, I mean, for one, you'd have a lot of people doing what Veruca Salt and her dad did, which
Yes,
is buy up all of them
exactly.
they could find.
Mhm.
And it's I love the fact that like you have that right. So she makes her dad buy basically all the chocolate in the Tri County area or whatever, you know, wherever she
Mhm.
lives. They never explicitly say it, but she's somewhere in the United Kingdom.
Yeah.
Um, and just scour through it till they find it. Whereas you've got Charlie who basically buys 2 or 3 chocolate
Mhm.
bars and finds it. Um, and it's it, I just wonder how that would play out and how you would adapt that to today's landscape. It's kind of fascinating to think about, like with an online landscape and the way people game systems now so much.
Yeah. And
Um,
and the rate at which information is transferred is so much faster.
oh yeah,
Like, I did like the guy who forged his ticket
hmm,
because you could definitely see that happening.
oh for sure.
Yeah.
Funny behind the scenes story on that. The picture that they use for that guy that's in Paraguay
Yeah.
was the portrait of the winner from Paraguay is Martin Bormann. Bormann was Adolf Hitler's personal secretary.
Stop. Was it really?
And so that was kind of an inside joke of like after World War II, how some of the Germans fled to South
Oh my
America.
goodness. Oh,
So they just
I
kind
never
of
would have gotten that.
snuck that in there. And I thought that was interesting
It is.
and kind of funny. Oh, good point. Somebody brings up the live streams and mukbangs would be unreal of like people live streaming, opening up chocolate bars and then
Oh,
eating
yeah.
the chocolate and all of that kind of stuff. That would be that's a layer that they didn't think about back then at all.
Yeah.
Um, and kind of the stuff around it. Not just finding the golden ticket, but like everything about getting the golden ticket, live streaming, going
Right.
to the candy shops to buy it, buying it. Uh, Here would be a fun like in universe movie is an Ocean's 11 style heist movie of
Ah,
stealing chocolate
no.
bars. Like a heist movie
That would be
stealing
great.
chocolate bars to get the golden ticket would be awesome.
That's fantastic. I would
Um,
watch that.
so yeah, we spent a bunch of time meeting the kids, and the kids are the first ticket is found in Germany by Augustus Gloop,
Mhm.
who in the book is said to be just this huge, heavy set kid that eats not just eats a lot, but has like no table manners. Is just constantly shoveling food in his face. Um, and I don't want to do too much comparison between this and the Tim Burton movie,
Mhm.
but they do more of that in the Tim Burton movie. Like he's always got chocolate on his face, kind of
Gotcha.
thing. But Augustus Gloop is the first one, and we also meet Violet Beauregard, the gum chewer,
Mhm.
and Veruca Salt, who is just a spoiled brat that wants everything, and
Mhm.
Mike TV, which I like Mike TV because this book written in the mid 60s, kids just sitting around watching TV is a new phenomenon in a lot of ways. So, um, and pretty much I think it was trying to find all of the archetypes of like the worst kids, the
Yeah.
overcompetitive kid, the sloppy, like no manners kid, the bratty
Mhm.
one, and then just the lazy. I just want to sit around and watch TV all day and do nothing else.
Yeah.
Little bit of the seven deadly sins in there too, if you want to
Yeah.
parse that out.
Yeah.
Um, and then you got Charlie, who's just a kid, lives with his
Yep.
in the one room shack, eating
Yeah.
their cabbage water. Oh
I've had
God,
enough cabbage water, and then he pulls out a loaf of bread.
that is.
I'm like, "Oh, man."
Look, I have had cabbage soup before,
Yeah.
and that's rough. That looked like it was just boiled cabbage left in the water and put in a bowl, and
Ugh.
that would be
Ugh.
the worst thing. So yes, a loaf of bread suddenly looks like a feast in that situation
Yeah.
for sure. Um, but yeah, we meet all of them, and then we get so it's like 44 minutes into this hour and 45-minute movie that we meet Willy Wonka finally.
Right.
Um, for me, I have my thoughts on this entrance. What did you think of Willy Wonka's entrance into the film?
I thought it very much fit the character. The stories of him just being holed up in there and him to come out looking quite so frail,
Mm-hmm.
and then right at the end being like, "No, that's not me. Here's my somersault.
Yep.
I don't need this cane."
Yeah, one of the best entrances in a film I can think of.
Yeah.
Like introduction to a character, especially they spend 40 minutes building the mythos of Willy Wonka
Right.
and who
And then
he
it feels
is.
like just as long that he's walking down the sidewalk all
Yeah.
slowly.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
it's really
done
well
so
done.
well because all the music drops out, all the fanfare drops out, and it's just his cane and his
Mhm.
steps, and they take a long time to get it. What I loved is the story goes that after he read the script, Gene Wilder said, "I will take the role of Willy Wonka under one condition," and that he wanted to do that. He wanted to
Oh,
have the
that's awesome.
limp and then the somersault,
Yeah.
and his point for that, the idea behind it. Now, this could be apocryphal. I don't know. I assume at this point that it's probably true because I've read it in a couple of places. But the whole thing was his idea was, well, that's how he's introduced, and from that point on, you're never quite sure if he's lying or telling the truth.
Yes.
And
But that fits him so much in the way that he never answers a single question,
yep, yeah, exactly,
and just finds ways to divert everything.
yep. So
It
it's like it's a perfect introduction for the character.
Mhm.
Absolutely love that.
Absolutely.
And Gene Wilder is just
Yes. I don't know that you could have found a better person at that time to play that character.
no, see, I don't think you could either. And I read a bunch of different names that they thought about for it at the time. A couple that stand out to me were Roald Dahl envisioned Spike Milligan, and if you're a British, I think he did a lot of British television in the '60s.
Mhm.
Um, also, the Third Doctor, John Pertwee, was thought of for
Okay.
it, but he couldn't do
Okay.
it because he was busy with Doctor Who.
Mhm.
Um, and I'm sure there were a couple of other names, but I feel like Gene Wilder is the right mixture of like lovely and approachable, but also can be horrendously frightening.
Yeah. Yeah,
Which,
and incredibly snarky,
yes,
and I just like you said, like, there's a lot of assumptions you make about actors when you first see them.
mhm,
And Gene Wilder's a kind of a hard guy to read if you were to just, see him walk into a room. You're like, "Okay, what am I getting out of this guy?" And I think that fits the character also.
yeah,
And then it turns out that he's, amazingly talented and super funny and does all these wild, gestures and whatnot and does everything so well that
mhm.
it was just the perfect storm.
Yeah, because like when I would see interviews and read interviews and listen to him outside of movies, Gene Wilder was always so just thoughtful
Mhm.
and really interesting to listen to. And he had a lot of just he just was always thinking about people. And it seemed like just really intriguing. But you're right in that you can't quite get a read on him. And he had fantastic comedic timing. Like his comedic
Yes.
timing was never off. And obviously,
Mhm.
if you work with Richard Pryor for several movies, you better be
Right,
on your
right.
game.
Exactly.
You know, you work with Mel Brooks, you better be on your game. And he was great at all of that.
Mhm.
And so balancing that with the ability, he was one of the great yellers and screamers in movie history. Like he could, so you never quite knew what it was, and therefore Willy Wonka could be kind and gentle, or maybe he was
Right.
purposely causing these kids to have accidents
Mhm.
in his factory. Who knows? And I
Right.
really really dug that.
Mhm.
So yeah, that introduction to him, and then he brings the kids in, and we get to see the factory finally, 45 minutes in, and I love that like everything is edible, and
Yeah.
so granted it's all prop stuff, but the idea of going to this place where just all, and that's the part of this movie and this story that I think has been reused and parodied and done over and over in different forms, so that even if you haven't seen this movie, you've seen something Wonka-esque, right? Like
Yes, absolutely.
if you're a Futurama fan, there was the episode that dealt with Slurm that was
Mhm.
very much a Willy Wonka, send up. So it's just, and it's been memed all to hell and back, and but yeah, I love all of that stuff. The chocolate river, that definitely
Yeah.
in this movie does not look like chocolate at all,
No. No, it does not.
because chocolate just wouldn't work, right? You couldn't.
No,
It'd be way too thick.
that is a dirt river that I am looking at right now is what I thought the entire time.
Yep, and it was basically water and apparently water and chocolate and cream, I think is what they said
So
they
it was
used.
actually chocolate
I think it
in
was
there?
supposed to be, but it probably, from what I read, had to have smelled pretty bad by the end of shooting. But they got around, like certain stuff would be balloons that they just painted up, or foam stuff. The teacup flower that he picks as
Yeah.
he's singing and he drinks out of and then takes a bite of was just a wax thing. So
Oh, that's so gross to think about now, that he
yeah,
just took a bite out of a wax cup.
yeah. But I mean, I remember having like wax candy when I was a kid, so it's not that far off. But this was like just wax, so he had to spit it out afterwards.
Yeah.
Which yum. Um, the Oompa Loompas, of course, the Oompa Loompas make their first appearance in the factory when Augustus gets trapped, more or less.
Mhm.
Um, and in the book, they're not really presented as having orange skin. They're just little, like, pygmy-sized people. I don't
Mhm.
know if that's even the right word to use, but they're just little people that come from Loompaland, and um, they made them look that way for the movie, and I think it works because it gives it that weird, just kind of otherworldly feel to these guys.
It does, but if there's one thing in the movie that I absolutely do not trust Wonka on, it was that whole explanation of Loompa Land.
Right.
I was like, "No, he's making them wear this, and he has made all of this up."
So that is a great, because I know in some parodies they've definitely done that in, like,
Yeah.
where they're absolutely 100% like slave labor for him. And yeah, that but I love that, like, they come in and they'll sing their songs. That is one thing, is I like the consistency of the Oompa Loompa songs in this,
Mhm.
because it's the
Mhm.
same song, they just tailor it to whatever situation is going on.
Right, right.
Um,
It's your little moral message about why these kids are awful.
mhm. The funny thing was, most of the actors playing the Oompa Loompas were so they shot all this in Germany, and a lot of them were German or non-English speaking,
Oh.
from wherever they could find them. So if you watch it again, pay attention to some of the Oompa Loompas and their lip syncing. They don't really
Oh,
know the
it's
words to the song.
that would have to be tough.
Yeah,
Here's the song in another language, now make it look like you're singing it.
right.
Ugh.
Um,
That was, that was the moment when I was watching this and, they started singing the song after Gloop had been sent away, and I'm sitting there, we had just been to H Mart, and I'm shoveling these vanilla panda candies into my mouth while they're telling me not to be gluttonous, and
right.
I'm like, "Oh, oh, the Oompa Loompas do not approve of me."
Now that's the third. No, that is the Oompa Loompa song is like the fourth major song, right? Because we get one right
Yeah,
off the bat,
you
the
got
Candyman.
yeah, right, right, and that was the moment where I was sitting there, I was like, "Oh, here we go."
Yep. I
But yeah,
think
it's
that's.
just not a giant piece of the movie, and again, after I sat and watched the movie, I was like, "I liked that." Why do I do that? Why do I like, "Ugh, I hate musicals."
I think too, some of that can be whatever your first experience is with musical or musical theater
Yeah,
is going to make a lot of difference, right? And if, like, the first thing you
sure.
saw is either an opera or an operetta, or like a
Yeah.
story you weren't interested in that also happens to be a musical because you were dragged to it in like a school field trip or something, that's going to sour your taste on it.
Yeah,
Um,
it had to have been something like that.
yeah, I'm sure it
There
was
had
for
to have
me.
been something, yeah. I don't know what the event that started it was. Do you remember what it was for you?
I don't offhand. I'm
Oh,
I'm
okay, yeah.
about 95% certain that it was like a somewhere between first and third grade school field trip,
Gotcha. Yep.
and I just didn't care about whatever we were watching, so
Mhm.
it took me right out of it. But yeah, we start off with Candyman, the Candyman Can, which is a great song, and I love all the stuff in that candy shop because candy guy running the shop's just throwing
Yeah.
candy at kids and just letting them, like, the kids are just running rampant in that place. Cracks me up.
Yeah. And then later when Charlie gets his candy, he's like, "Hey, hey, where's my money?" And I
Right.
was like, "You were the guy that was just throwing stuff all over the place a minute ago."
Yeah, but make the poor kid pay. Sure.
Yeah.
But what's interesting is, like, that song is right at the beginning, and then we go like 20 minutes before our next song.
Right.
And the next song is the one with the mom. And it's the song I never remember, and it's because early versions of it that would be on cable, they would usually edit
Oh,
that
okay.
song out. Like, if there was any point they were going to edit for time, it would be that song, "Cheer Up, Charlie,"
Gotcha.
which is a beautiful song, but it's the least memorable one for me because
Yeah, I had forgotten about it until you just mentioned it because I thought the next song was the grandpa song.
yeah,
I
because
was sitting here thinking that yep.
then we get Grandpa's song, which, surprising. Now that he's got something like the golden ticket, he can get out of bed for the first time in 20 years. By the way, how soiled is that mattress?
Oh. Oh. It's gotta be terrible.
Four
4 people.
invalids, 4 old
Yeah.
invalids on that mattress for 20 years. Yeesh. No amount of Febreze is going to fix that.
No. Mm-mm.
We get Grandpa's song, and then my favorite song in the entirety of the movie is Pure Imagination.
Yes.
It is just such
Which
a
is
beautiful song.
another song. That song and Candyman were both songs that I had definitely heard before,
Mhm.
but did not know that they were from this.
Okay.
Or I'm not even sure if they originated here, but I didn't know that they related to this.
Well, I know, like, because Sammy Davis Jr. Put out a version of the Candyman right around the same time this came out, because he
Gotcha.
actually wanted to be in the movie, but they didn't want to cast anybody super well known to play that role at the start of the movie, because they didn't. The filmmakers were kind of like, we don't want to take away from the rest of the movie by take people out of it with a recognizable face right at the beginning.
Sure.
So they didn't do that, but he still recorded his own version of the song and put it out right at the same time the movie came out. So it was really popular at the time. And then Pure Imagination is it's just such a beautiful song. And Gene Wilder has a great singing voice.
Mhm.
So I love that. And then, yeah, Augustus falls into the river, and I love he can't swim, and he gets sucked underneath, and we get our first moment of Willy being like, "Oh no, please don't."
Yeah. Those had to be my favorite lines in the entire movie. "Oh, no, don't do that."
Yeah, the suspense is killing me. I hope it doesn't end. All that kind of stuff. I might have captured a few of those. We can listen to in a little while, but we start picking the kids off one by one at this point, right? Augustus
Mhm.
is the first one to go. Now, the kid playing Augustus didn't speak a lot of English, so that's part of why he didn't have a ton of lines. I think in the book he's got a few more, and there's kind of there's more relationship between the kids being kind of not cool to each other than I think the movie really kind of gives out. With the exception of Violet and Veruca butt heads a little bit,
Yeah.
but I feel like there's more rivalry between the kids in both the Tim Burton movie and in the book.
Gotcha.
But Augustus is the first one to go, and then we get the scene. Now, first of all, one clip I will play early, and it's Willy, and it's right before they get onto the boat, because the boat comes up,
Mhm.
and they're about to get onto the boat and go into the tunnel. And I just love when he's like,
You're going to love this. Just love it.
no, they're not. Not at all. So for me, in terms of non-horror films, this is one of the scariest scenes in a movie.
Yes.
And you can imagine, young me watching this for the first time, not ready for what this scene was at all. This scarred a lot of kids.
There seems to be like a pattern in the movies from around this time that I've watched where there has to be this one like acid trip scene in the middle of the movie, and this was definitely it. That like what is even going on right now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is something I've talked about a lot with like Jim Henson, with Roald Dahl, with some of these people that, again, they push the envelope of like kids entertainment.
Mhm.
And this idea that no, it's okay for kids to be scared sometimes. Like that's not a bad thing. And so that envelope gets pushed. First of all, remember, this movie is rated G when it comes
Yeah.
out. So it's general audiences. So anybody can go. But it was, Henson did it with things like The Dark Crystal or Labyrinth, where those are solidly kids' movies aimed at a young audience, but they're dark and they're scary. And the Wonkatania scene, the tunnel in this movie is that. And here again is the genius of Gene Wilder, right? Because he is absolutely 100% unhinged in that scene. It is, and it's just the build of it. And it's everything around it. You get they're in this tunnel, and then the lighting changes and it gets really psychedelic and really weird, and he starts screaming and yelling, and you've got all this imagery going on behind them that's just, I don't know what.
Troubling.
Troubling is a good word. Troubling is a great
Yeah.
word for it. And yeah, it's incredibly memorable. And if you saw this at a young age, you never will forget that scene.
I can only imagine if I had seen this in like a theater as a child.
Oh, or even on TV as a child. Like,
Sure.
either way, just but I think it's really strong, and it again sets you up to like, what is going on with Willy Wonka, and are these kids
Right.
safe or not?
Yeah.
So from a narrative standpoint, it's really compelling in that way,
You sure?
because you just don't know. You don't know if he's like literally trying to pick these kids off one by one because he's a weird serial killer, or if he is actually the kindly chocolate maker and that's all he is. But I don't know about that.
It makes the lighter moments sit different when you have those glimpses of darkness.
Right.
And
Absolutely.
you're just forced to question, is this as great as it seems?
And the fact that he can switch from it so quickly. They get out of the tunnel
Right.
and he's like, everything's fine again.
Yep.
And hey, let's go check out the invention room. And then we get to see that room, which is, again, one of those really fun ones. Just, there's a lot of like Dr. Seuss feel to some of this stuff too. And I love the invention room where you get to see the everlasting gobstopper.
Yeah.
Because that was one of my favorite candies as a kid, were gobstoppers. So I was always a fan of those. And I never understood, because I had them as a kid before I saw this movie, I never understood why the gobstoppers in the movie didn't look like the ones I could buy at the store.
They look like little Lego atom nucleus things.
Right. They're so weird. But,
Yeah.
and that's where we get a little bit of a callback to the stuff in the beginning where Slugworth, and that was added in, right? Slugworth wanting to get the recipe for the everlasting gobstopper. Did anything stand out to you in that particular room?
With the machines?
Stuff? Yeah, like the machines and the different kind of confections and stuff that he would talk about.
Yeah, the everlasting gobstopper machine, how it was like covered. It was like I couldn't tell if it was machines, the pieces that were supposed to be hidden, or if that was how the machine was supposed to be looked, because it had like the colored tarps on it. And I remember thinking about that. But yeah, there were several things. And then the way he would add the items, like he would say, this candy's too cold, so he would throw a coat in it. Or this one needs a kick. And he
needs
adds
a kick
the
and throw shoes in. Yes, I love that. That stuff cracks me up. That's again, that's that like Seussian type of thing of just absurdity.
It's like the most Mel Brooks moment of the entire movie.
Yep. And we get the scene with the fizzy drink, which
Yeah.
again added the actual like them taking it is added in. And apparently
And
that scene
even
was a little rough to film just because they're on harnesses,
yeah,
which
sure.
if you've ever been in one of those harnesses, you know they are not comfortable whatsoever. Although
Even when the movie was going on and they got to the fizzy drink part,
Mhm.
as soon as they both took the drink of the fizzy drink, and I was like, "Well, this doesn't really fit, does it?" Like, I had already established that it was gonna be the other kids who all, like, tried something, and then
Yeah,
I thought Charlie would be like, "No, we were told we're not supposed to,"
right.
and then he does it, and I'm like, "Well, that doesn't really track with where I thought we were going."
My one note on that was like it wasn't Charlie's idea. It's all Grandpa
It was
Joe.
Grandpa's, yeah.
Grandpa Joe
Mhm,
almost ruined it for him. Charlie didn't stop
mhm.
him, but
Yeah.
Grandpa Joe's kind of not good.
No, Charlie would not have done that on his own.
No. But they do almost get chopped up by the big spinning
Yeah.
exhaust fan at the top before they figure out that they got to burp and release the
Mhm.
gas. I will say they did a great job of hiding the wires.
Yeah.
There was a
No,
couple of times
excellent.
if you pay a lot of attention, you can see them.
Mhm.
But for the most part, they did a great job of hiding those, and it looks good as they're floating
Yeah.
around. Go from there to the TV room, right?
Uh,
No, the gum.
was Veruca Salt first?
Oh, that's right. So
Yeah.
we've got the gum.
Mhm.
That's how we get rid of Violet with
Yeah, it's
the
the
3-course meal
blueberry.
and the blueberry. Yep. And I love
Mhm.
too how every time one of the kids has to leave, he's got to tell one of the Oompa Loompas, take so and so to whatever room it is, right? Like
Yeah.
take her to the fudge room and get Augustus before he goes into the vats.
Yeah.
Violet chews the gum and turns into the blueberry, so it's like take her to the juicing room. So we got to squeeze the juice out of her. So then, yeah, after the gum, which is a pretty fun scene. That was actually a
Yeah.
really good effect. I liked the change because in the
Yeah.
book, it's supposed to be her skin and hair turn blue, but they couldn't really do that effect well. So I like but I like the use of lighting on her
Yeah.
to make her look blue, and then in a
Mhm.
cutaway, come back and she's fully blue
Mhm.
in the suit. And yeah, Amy in the chat mentions a great line of when he tells one to go to the juicing room, and he tells the Oompa Loompa, "No, no, I won't hold you personally responsible." It's just like, what is this dude's deal? I love it.
Yeah.
So then we get the golden goose, and that was a change from the book, and that was so in the book it's a walnut shelling room with a bunch of trained squirrels that shell the walnuts, and she wants one of those. But getting or having squirrels on set was not going to be logistically feasible.
That would have been a nightmare.
So they ended up changing it up to the golden goose. But we get Veruca and her song.
Yeah.
And look, these kids aren't great, but Veruca is the worst.
Yes, by far.
She is just terrible all the way through. And
And so
um,
was her dad.
her dad too. I know in the Tim Burton movie, her dad is a little less like he wants to do everything for his little girl, but he's not quite like this. Dad was just completely whipped.
Mhm.
Uh,
Mhm. He's shut down his whole nut factory
yeah.
so that she could find that ticket.
Well, they did that in the story, but this dad just seemed like he was just browbeaten by his daughter.
Yeah.
And there's even the scene with the mom, and the mom is like, just doesn't care. It's like, oh, happiness and harmony are the key to kids. It's like, lady, do something, anything. Like that whole scene, she's just knitting.
Yeah. Veruca's dad was the one I kept trying to see people that I would recognize,
Mhm.
and it just never really happened. But Mike TV had some mannerisms that I was sure that I've seen somewhere, but it turns out no. But Veruca's dad was the one, like, I know I've seen him in other stuff. I know I've seen him in other stuff. He's a guy named Roy Kinnear,
Yep.
And it wasn't him that I was convinced that I had seen. He has a son named Rory Kinnear,
Yes.
and Rory Kinnear was in Black Mirror, a pretty famous episode of Black Mirror,
Yeah.
and, that was what was getting me the entire time. I'm like, "I know I've seen that guy." They just look so similar.
Okay. They do. You're right.
Yeah.
Now that you say it, yeah, Rory
Yeah.
does look a lot like his dad. Yeah. So Veruca's Tarot. Now, if you aren't aware of this, there was a band in the '90s called Veruca Salt. They had a
Mhm.
pretty popular song with Seether, and then they also had another one a couple years later called Volcano Girls. Their band name came from this movie. The cool thing I like about that is, number one, I love Veruca Salt. That was a band that I just listened to a lot back then. They inspired a band in the 2000s to have the name Seether based off of their song. So the
I
band
didn't know that
Seether,
those were related.
yeah. So the band Seether is like two factories removed from Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, which is pretty fun.
Also, you know who growing up never knew that Veruca Salt was a reference to anything, and I thought it was just words that they made up for the band name? That would have been me, because I had never seen this movie.
Yep. I can totally see that, right? It's just like,
Yeah.
that's a cool sounding group of
Yeah, it's just neat
sounds.
sounding.
Sure. So yeah, so Veruca has her thing, and then she gets sent to the garbage, and Dad goes in after her. So now we're down to 2. Now we've got Charlie and Mike TV. And we get another moment of, I like, everybody's got to put on the special suits and have the special glasses to go in the TV room. And I do like that we get an explanation of how TV works in the worst possible way. Like, it's the worst explanation. It just breaks the picture up into a million little pieces and sends it through the air and then reconstructs it on the other end. Sure.
When I saw this, the first thing that I thought was Wonka in his suit with his hat on. I was like, "Why? Why have I not done this for Dragon Con as a Dragon Con cosplay? This absolutely has to happen. It's the greatest costume I've
Right?
ever seen."
So good.
Yeah.
And I love that they do the demonstration, and then Mike is like, "Well, could you send anything else? Could you send a person? I can be the first person sent to through TV." And he's all about it. And I got to give them credit for, not having digital effects that we would have today in order to accomplish that type of a look. They did a really good job with
They really
set
did.
decorations and miniatures and all of that, to where
Mhm.
obviously you can tell, like, when she picks up the little version, it's a doll.
Yeah.
And when he's being held, it's like fake, foam rubber fingers or whatever that are holding him up. But it still looks so good. Like, it
I thought
really.
the best example of it was this actual set that he was on
Oh, yeah.
that was built to look like the little TV. And I was like, "Oh, this is so well done. This
Yeah,
is
it was really
fantastic."
good. So now he's got to go to the taffy pulling machine to get stretched back out, which is great. And now we only have Charlie left. But I like that at this point, Willie's like, "All right, well, cool.
Yeah.
See ya. I got to go." And both Charlie and Grandpa Joe are just confused. They're like, "Wait, what's happening? What, we don't get our lifetime supply of chocolate or whatever?" And they go into his office. Now, the office originally, I guess, in the book, I think, doesn't have everything cut in half like it is. But I love that office. I love
Yes.
the whole vibe of that, because it's so weird and like just almost otherworldly, that everything in it is cut in half.
So one of my favorite fan theories, because I love fan theories. I love it when people like just basically make up their own version of what happened or whatever, and
Mhm.
it's kind of interesting. But one of my favorite fan theories that I read was that uh the Weasley twins from Harry Potter,
Yeah.
is that Willy Wonka is actually the surviving Weasley twin,
Haha.
and that everything is half in the office because he feels like only half is whole. And it goes back to them making like the prank candies and stuff.
Okay.
And I was like, that's
That's a
so
fun one.
fun. It is a good one.
That's a
Uh,
that's a fun one, because a lot of times for me, fan theories are hit or miss, because
sure.
I feel like so many fan theories are just, we're just going to force our idea into this thing, But that is fun because this is so different from that world, but
Right.
yet
Right.
not. And so like that's just kind of a cool idea. Like, yeah, that would be neat if that was true.
Yeah. Yeah. I have a couple of those that I've like I read through them, and like you said, a lot of them are like, okay, that's ridiculous, that was ridiculous. But there's a couple of them like that one. I'm like, I might hang on to that one. That one's kind of fun.
Yeah.
That one's cool.
And we get the blow up. He yells at them that they lost, that they broke the rules. They signed the contract and they broke the rules and they get nothing. And Uncle Joe yells at him. And I do like, because this is where Charlie gets to kind of prove himself, because he brings the gobstopper back and he sets it down with the without saying it. It's like, I'm not going to give this to Slugworth. And that's all Willie needed to hear. That's all he needed. And now he's going to take him in the Wonkavator and explain to him that he gets everything. He gets the whole, he can bring all his family and live in the chocolate factory, and that's it. And that ends the movie just ends. And endings are hard. I get that, but I always love that. That's just, we have all of this story, and then it's like, yeah, kid, you win it all. Cool. And there we go.
Yeah. There's usually like build up to like this like climactic moment. And then there's always the stuff that's sort of like, and here they are now. And you just got none of that. It just stopped right at the moment that it was all building towards.
Yeah. Yeah. The moment that normally would be like, here's the crescendo, and then we'll come down off of that and end. It's like, we got to the crescendo and the lights went out. And they just float away in the giant glass elevator. Now, the sequel story was Charlie and the Great Glass Elevator. And they wanted to make a sequel movie, but Roald Dahl basically was like, no, I'm not selling you the rights to this, because I hated that movie so much. And so they didn't get to make that. But, it's a happy ending for Charlie, because he got a lifetime supply of chocolate and a chocolate factory. And apparently a lot of slave labor. I don't know. They never do explain in this movie how Willie pays the Oompa Loompas.
I'm telling you, like there's something wrong going on. And it's just, I think it's sort of an effect of like the way it ends in that crescendo. You don't know what happens afterward. The way that he never answers any question, like you can't help but just sort of like, all right, so what's going on here? And what's really happening?
Yeah. All I'm saying is that OSHA shows up and takes one look at this factory and it's shut down. All right.
Oh, it's over. It's over.
There is a great parody of Pure Imagination, the song of "Come With Me and You'll See an Entire World of OSHA Violations."
Yeah.
And that one is probably my favorite parody of that song. Now, I did clip a lot from this movie because there's so many moments that are worth listening to, and some of these I just have to play because they're too good. So first and foremost is the Wonka mania, right? Just the whole like hysteria around Willy Wonka and the mystique, because he made candy for so long, and then he just shut down the factory and then reopened it a few years later, but nobody's seen him now. So he's this mysterious figure, right? It's sort of, in some ways, the current, I would say, version of that is the guy that created Bitcoin. Because no one technically knows who that is.
Yeah.
And so there's this mystique built around that. And that's the closest parallel I could make today to what Willy Wonka and Wonkamania would be like. But I think my favorite of all the Wonkamania, because there's like, the news broadcasts are great and all of that, but the guy at his psychiatrist sitting on the couch, because the first one is,
but I dreamed the archangel appeared and whispered into my ear and told me where to find a golden Wonka ticket.
And what exactly did he say?
Like the psychiatrist's whole demeanor changes at that point, and then it followed up with this one.
This was a dream, a fantasy. I mean, you said just
Shut
now.
up, Hofstadter, and tell me where the ticket is.
He doesn't care anymore. He just wants that damn ticket.
I love that too, because it's like one of the we'll call them a man of science. who's now like, oh, maybe there's a message in this dream, and this will give me the answer to the ticket. That's how bad I want this. Is that I'm
Yep.
willing to change my entire outlook on life.
Yes. I also like Charlie lives in the town where the chocolate factory
Yeah.
is.
Yeah, just walks past it on his way home.
Yeah. But he runs into that weird dude that's like in one scene and then never seen or heard from again. That's got a cart with like a meat cleaver and just all sorts of random crap on it. And he just is wandering around and he stops this kid and just tells him,
Nobody ever goes in. Nobody ever comes out.
yeah, that's weird, dude. Okay.
That's the most horrible. And he turns around and he's just got all these hanging blades.
Yep.
And
the
I'm
Tinker.
like, this
That's
is
his name.
such a slasher. Yeah, it's such a slasher movie. Like, what is happening? And it goes right back on its way. It's just like it crossed paths with a horror movie for just a minute. And that guy went on his way in the other direction.
He's off to do, we don't want to know what he's off to.
Yeah.
We don't. But yeah, he was great. They do use the term Wonkamania in the movie.
Truly, it is incredible the way that Wonkamania has descended upon the globe.
And it is the globe, right? It's worldwide. That's the other thing with
Mhm.
it, is it's not just a US thing or UK thing. It's everywhere. Everyone wants in on this. Like the news reports like this one.
And now details on the sudden announcement that has captured the attention of the entire world. Hidden among the countless billions of Wonka bars are 5 gold tickets. And to the 5 people who find them will come the most fabulous prize one could wish for. A lifetime supply of chocolate.
So a few things about that. First of all, 5 tickets among the billions of bars.
Billions.
out there. Wow, that is a prolific factory.
That's what I thought that too after he said billions. And then a couple, a little while later, I think when they're counting at Veruza Salk, they throw out another number that's nowhere close to billions. And then
Right.
one guy says, we'll probably sell 100,000 chocolate bars. And it just adds to that thing. Like nobody knows anything about what's happening at this chocolate factory. Nobody has a clue how much
Not a
chocolate
clue.
they're
Nope.
making. Yeah.
But 5 out of the billions of chocolate bars means you have a better chance of winning the lottery than getting one
Yep.
of these golden tickets. And also, I love that the prize is something that anyone could hope for: a lifetime supply of chocolate, unless you are allergic to chocolate or you don't like
Yeah.
chocolate. In which case, not a great prize.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, look, I'd take a lifetime supply of chocolate. It's a lot of chocolate,
Sure.
but I'd be up for it. The Wonka bars. I'm trying to remember what this one was.
Miss Curtis, did you hear me? It's your husband's life or your case of Wonka bars.
How long will they give me to think it over?
That was great. Oh, I forgot about that
was.
one.
Yeah, because she's so upset like 1 second before until she hears how much it's going to cost for the
Yep.
ransom.
Until the ransom is the case of chocolate bars. Oh, that was ridiculous, and I loved it.
Yep.
I also loved the computer. Like, just out of nowhere, this guy's got a supercomputer that he's using to try and find and pinpoint the location, because the computer, it's 1971 and this thing's got a personality. It's artificial intelligence. And he hits the couple of buttons and like, now it's going to tell us.
I am now telling the computer exactly what he can do with a lifetime supply of chocolate.
He's getting so upset and so frustrated by this thing because it won't give him the answer. In fact, the computer says, I can't do that. That would be cheating. And he's like, oh, you're going to tell me, computer. I think, okay. So I did break down some of these into the individual kids. There was just this one from Augustus because, again, he doesn't have a lot of lines. And really, basically, he's introduced, they're in that restaurant, which was a real restaurant in Germany. And I guess the kid playing him didn't like knockwurst, but that's what he had to eat to shoot that scene.
Oh, no.
But this is the only clip I got.
Augustus Gloop, the pride of Dusselheim.
The pride of Dusselheim. Mike TV's introduction is great because he will not stop watching his Westerns. Doesn't matter what it is. And I like that. I like his mom saying,
Boy, what a great show. I serve all his TV dinners right here. He's never even been to the table.
That's not something to be proud of, lady. It's really not.
You're going to get picked on by Oompa Loompas.
Right?
That's where you're headed.
And also, there was this moment, which I'm going to say hasn't aged great with Mike.
Colt 45. Pop won't let me have one yet, will you, Pop?
Not till you're 12, son.
Yeah. I had a moment with that one, too. I was like, wait, what?
And yet also oddly timely.
Yeah.
So, some things just haven't changed. And I want the backstory behind this, because when Mike shows up before Willy comes out of the factory for the first time, and he's on TV, and he says,
Hi, Billy. Hi, Maggie. Hi, Fishface. How do I look?
I want the backstory behind his friend named Fishface. I want to know that one, because that's great. That's fantastic. Violet is the gum chewing champion of the world, right? Like world record holder. And along with the soiled mattress of 4 old people.
Now, this piece of gum here is one that I've been chewing on for 3 months solid.
No, you won't. That gum has lost all its chew. You are chewing on, at this point, a rock.
I feel like I didn't know that gum chewing was quite the scourge in 1971 that they and I feel like it's maybe just a pet peeve of the Oompa Loompas. They just don't like hearing people chewing around them.
Yeah.
Which I get
Could
it.
be.
I get it.
But I mean, like, what's the shelf life on flavor in gum? Like 5 minutes?
If you get a good one.
Yeah. If it's fruit stripe, it's like 30 seconds. She's been chewing that piece of gum for 3 months.
No. The thing would fully have disintegrated.
It would have. And not only that, but she could crack walnuts with her jaw at that point. Like, how are her jaw muscles not just insanely huge? And then I love when she starts changing color. The delivery of this by her dad. Her dad, the used car salesman, who's always trying to sell something. It's great. But this delivery was perfect.
Violet, you're turning violet, Violet.
I think he got paid by how many times he said Violet. He just made all his money in that one shot. Of course, Veruca. Veruca's the worst.
Yeah,
absolutely
the worst.
But I do like her saying this about Willy Wonka, and I think this has Charlie's response, but if it doesn't, I'll talk about that.
He's absolutely bonkers.
Okay. So I love the term bonkers. It's one of my favorites to use, but I like Charlie's response to that of like, that's not so bad. Like, what's wrong with being a little weird? Sort of Charlie gets Willy Wonka in a way that the rest of the kids don't.
That was the way that I felt after the boat trip, because he was so unhinged. It's like, is this guy just weird or is he bad? Because those are very, very different things to me. Like,
yes,
he could just enjoy the terror of what you've been through and think it's a funny goof to put people on that boat. Or, you know what I'm saying? Or it could be much more nefarious.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's it. It's not necessarily good versus evil. It's weird versus evil for me.
There you go. I like that.
Yeah.
Okay. So Veruca wants a golden ticket. She's making her dad find her a golden ticket. So he shut down his business and has all of his employees just unwrapping chocolate bars, which we don't even need to go into the food waste aspect of this. But then in a desperate plea to his workers, he opens up the window and yells out onto the factory floor.
And listen to this. The first girl that finds a golden ticket gets a £1 bonus in a pay packet. What do you think of that?
Number one, they were really excited about getting a £1 bonus in their pay packet, which even adjusted for inflation, that's not a lot of money.
No,
really not. To be just doing that. But yeah, that's capitalism for you.
Talking about unhinged moments, though, him screaming like that.
Yes. Well, he's got to do something to get Veruca to just calm down because she's
Yeah.
freaking out. And then all the mom can say,
Happiness is what counts for children. Happiness and harmony.
okay, but happiness and harmony is not just do whatever she wants.
It's
That's
also not Veruca.
No.
Veruca, there's no way that harmony is a word I would use for that child.
No, because her response to everything is,
I want an Oompa Loompa now!
oh, look, I do not condone violence in general, nor violence against children. But the desire to missile dropkick that girl down a tunnel is it's really strong. And I hate to say that.
No, it's not even all the time it's what she says, it's how she says it. Like she could be saying good things, and if she said it in that tone, you're just like, ugh.
And you know, the funny thing is she is the one of the 5 kid actors that continued acting after this. Like the rest of them, the rest of them just sort of were like, I don't really want to do this. And they went off and they did like this movie. And maybe, I know the kid that played Mike TV didn't act again till like 94. The kid that played Charlie didn't act again for a long time. Like he has 2 credits on his IMDb. It just wasn't for them. But she did continue acting for a little while before kind of retiring from it. But she was really good at what she did. Just the character was insufferable.
Right.
So, you know, there's that. I mean, you got Charlie and Grandpa Joe had a bunch, first of all.
I'm fed up with cabbage water. It's not enough.
I'm with you, Charlie. Cabbage water is not enough. No.
True.
It is not at all. I did, from a story standpoint, I wish we had more time with his mom, because that scene where he comes to where she's working and talks to her for a couple of minutes, it's really touching. It's a really cute scene. And her, you know, him kind of asking her like,
When will they change?
Probably when you least expect it.
Well, that's true.
Yeah.
Things do change when you least expect them to. So, Grandpa Joe, being Grandpa Joe, is both really supportive of Charlie and also kind of giving him a lot of false hope.
Yeah.
At the same time. But it's his grandpa, right? Grandpa, that's a grandpa's job. And I did like their exchange when they get off the boat after the tunnel and they see the first sign.
Dairy cream?
Whipped cream?
Coffee cream?
Vanilla cream?
Hair cream?
That's a great one. I just enjoyed that.
Every time he had any kind of conversations or interactions with Grandpa Joe, because I'm weird and I am who I am, I couldn't help but wonder what was going on with the other grandpa.
Right.
And I'm like, well, how come there's no relationship there? What are you doing? You're like 2 feet away.
Yeah. Grandpa, I love you. You're fine too.
Yeah.
You're there. Yeah, I think in the book there's more with him. Because I think also Grandpa Joe is the mom's father.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And I think the other one is the dad's father, and I think the dad is a more prominent character in the book, as I recall.
Gotcha.
So that probably plays into it too. Yeah, I love like Charlie comes home and he's got the bread. You know, he pulls the bread out of his bag, and his mom asks where he got it, and Grandpa Joe immediately,
What difference does it make where he got it? Point is, he got it.
yeah. So what if you had to knock down some old lady and steal her loaf of bread and leave her bleeding in an alley? We got a loaf of bread. Like, Grandpa don't care.
Yeah, that's when you realize Grandpa Joe isn't maybe the most law-abiding citizen.
Now, I'm not saying Charlie did any of that because he wouldn't.
Yeah, right. But
still.
Yeah.
And Grandpa knew immediately what a marketing genius Willy Wonka is.
The man's a genius. He'll sell 1 million bars.
Or billions.
Or billions.
You know, either one. Million, billion, 10,000. It's something. Some number of bars. They also had, and this is a thing that definitely dates this as being a little bit older, is Grandpa and his smoking. Even though he
Yeah.
never smokes a pipe, it's brought up more than once. And by Charlie, too.
From now on, I'm going to pay for your tobacco.
No one's going to
Yeah.
pay for it, Charlie. I'm giving it up.
Come on, Dad. It's only one pipe a day.
Yeah, we're eating cabbage water for dinner, and the four of you haven't left that bed in 20 years, but it's only one pipe a day. You're fine, Dad.
Like, do you have a doctor? Because I know this doctor told you this 20 years ago.
Also, I like Charlie saying, I'll be paying for your tobacco now. No, you won't, kid. No, you won't.
Yeah.
You better not. Pretty sure even at that point, kids couldn't buy tobacco. Just guessing.
Right.
And then later on,
Grandpa, that money was for tobacco.
Grandpa, I got to feed your habit. So
yeah, there would not be one person in that house. If he pulled out one bit of tobacco, that'd be like, hey, we're eating cabbage water, right? What are you even doing?
Although Amy does bring up a good point in the chat of being around people who are quitting tobacco. Maybe you just let them. You can get a little cranky.
Yeah, I mean, that's true. That's fair.
I also loved all this stuff in the classroom. We keep cutting to his classroom a couple of times for some reason, which I don't think that was in the book. I don't remember that. But
that math teacher was awesome.
Right? He was amazing. I mean, the first time we meet him.
Charlie Bucket.
Yes, Mr. Turkentine?
I shall need an assistant. Come and give me a hand.
And just brings him right up and is explaining, he's like doing an experiment in front of the class with like dangerous chemicals. It was like nitro and something else and a mixture of my own making that I won't tell you what it is and probably has me on a government watch list.
Yeah.
But then he's all swept up in the Wonka mania too, right? Because there's there's the commotion out in the hallway.
You sure?
It's on the radio and he's giving truckloads of chocolate away.
Class dismissed.
No, it's only for 5 people.
Class undismissed.
He's so upset.
Yeah.
He's so upset. And then
Class redismissed.
class redismissed. Everyone out. Let's go. It was so good. I think I have one more that's just labeled teacher. I think this one's a little bit longer.
Together, it's horrible, dangerous stuff blows you up. But mixed together in the right way, as only I know how, what do you think it makes?
I don't know, sir.
Of course you don't know. You don't know because only I know. If you knew and I didn't know, then you'd be teaching me instead of me teaching you. And for a student to teach his teacher, it's presumptuous and rude. Do I make myself clear?
Yes, sir.
That, for being apparently a character that was not in the book, that feels like it belongs in a Roald Dahl story. Like
the other one,
it is very British humor.
It is, but the other one was his math.
Oh yes,
when he's trying to do the percentages and he's like, I can't do that one.
Yeah.
Let's say you did this many bars.
I love that because it's like, okay, 100 out of 1,000, that's 10%. 150, that's half again 100. So 200. No, 2. I can't do 2. Let's say you do 200. Wait a minute. Killed me.
Yeah.
Killed me. And of course, you can't capture audio of this movie without getting Gene Wilder as Willy Wonka. The number of times I use
Strike that. Reverse it.
is unreal. So many times. Strike that. Reverse it. Is one of my favorites. And just the subtle things that he would say. Like
I assume there's an accident indemnity clause.
Never between friends.
And I don't think Mike TV's mom, I don't know if she didn't catch that or if she totally understood it. I'm not sure, but I just love that just slips right past. Also, when he's talking to Veruca's dad about the boat.
You sure this thing will float, eh, Wonka?
With your buoyancy, sir, rest assured.
I'm going to start using that. That might be a good
absolutely.
one to use. Or this might be my favorite of these three, though.
This little piece of gum is a 3-course dinner.
Bull. No, roast beef, but I haven't got it quite right yet.
Again, that's Gene Wilder. That delivery is so perfect. That timing is
It is.
just razor sharp.
It's spot on.
Some of, like, one of his quotes, and I can't remember what this is from.
Candy is dandy, but liquor is quicker.
The butter gin
Oh,
and
he asked him
butterscotch.
if they only made candy at this place or if they made
Yeah.
something stronger, I think is the question that came
Mhm.
forward.
This one I mentioned earlier, but it's just so good.
The suspense is terrible. He's gonna go this time. I hope it'll last.
As he's just calmly eating candy while Augustus is stuck in that pipe. I love his whistle to get the attention of the Oompa Loompas.
Yeah.
It's a great little piece of little melody. I just love that. Also, this might be the first use I can think of, and I know this is from the book, of this word.
The poor little Oompa Loompas were so small and helpless, they would get gobbled up right and left. A Wang Doodle would eat 10 of them for breakfast and think nothing of it.
Wang Doodle.
Wang Doodle.
That feels like something out of a Dr. Seuss book.
It does.
It really, really does. I also love the running gag of him and Mike TV. Whenever Mike would say something to him, like at one point he says something and we get this.
How do you make them?
I'm a trifle deaf in this ear. Speak a little louder next time.
He's constantly saying that, and then a little bit later,
You should open your mouth a little wider when you speak.
it's just, it's so rude, but so perfect. When he's in the experiment room, the invention room, and he tries like that drink, I just loved, he tries the drink and they ask him like, is it any good? I don't know why, just that little just that sound is so good. I did play the You'll Love It, You'll Really Love It before the tunnel, which no, they're not going to love it. Not at all.
Right.
But then we get into the tunnel, and I've got 3 clips here in succession because we start off, things are getting a little weird.
There's no earthly way of knowing
He's singing.
which direction we are going.
That's a little weird. It's a little bit uncomfortable, but by the end of it, we've gone completely off the rails.
And they're certainly not showing any signs that they are slowing.
Just the way he could yell was so
Yeah.
good. He's it's freaky. And I absolutely love this scream. That is, I can't imagine being one of those kid actors on that set the first time that happens.
No.
Like, cut. All right, I'm gonna need a minute. I gotta go change, please. I have 5 minutes.
We're gonna rename that scream into Travis's Wilhelm scream.
Right. Oh yes, absolutely. I would sneak this in everywhere. Like the Wilhelm scream, the scream they use in Psycho, and that.
Yeah.
Those are like the 3. Funny thing,
The
I
Mount
actually,
Rushmore of screams.
yes, I went to see Red One this weekend. That just came out.
Oh, did you?
And they used the Psycho scream in a scene.
Really?
In like an action scene, like you would use a Wilhelm scream. They piped it in one. It cracked me up. We had the whole suspense line earlier, and then of course there's
Stop, don't come back.
Those were my favorite.
Right? They're so good. No,
Yeah.
please don't do that. Like just enough to not be able to get sued.
Yeah, there you go.
Also,
The snozberries taste like snozberries.
I love that.
That's another one that when I was watching Super Troopers,
Yep.
that kid said that, and I had no clue what it was a reference to. Somebody had to tell me later.
Yeah, and now you know. Now you know where it came
Now I
from.
know. Yep.
Yeah, A Stigma in the chat mentions that that's a dirty joke. It's actually not. That's kind of been proven to. It turned into a bit of a dirty joke that somebody says snozberries are a euphemism for a guy's twigging berries.
Oh.
But it wasn't originally in the book that way. Like it wasn't. It became sort of an urban legend that that's what that was. But snozberries were a thing in one of Roald Dahl's novels.
Gotcha.
And of course, one of the more famous ones in this is right at the end. So this is in the office. This is when they ask about, their lifetime supply of chocolate, and Gene Wilder once again does his Gene Wilder thing, and he's screaming Latin at them from the half a contract that he pulls out of the half a safe that he's reading with half a magnifying glass. All of it's so good. But then.
So you get nothing. You lose. Good day, sir.
Classic
Yep.
line. Absolutely great. And then just does a total 180 for Charlie when he leaves the gobstopper. And suddenly he's very kindly, very happy, which I just love. Like, because you just never knew. You never knew where he was coming from. And so they get into the Wonkavator, and I like.
Oh, we'll be cut to ribbons.
Probably.
I mean, honestly, at that point, it could have happened, and it wouldn't have been a surprise. Like, they could have just all died in that elevator, and maybe they did. Maybe they didn't actually go floating off at the end. Who knows?
I'll tell you the clip you just played about in the office.
Mm-hmm.
That Willy Wonka was more unsettling to me than the boat Willy Wonka.
He was very much
Yeah.
so. Like, the boat Willy Wonka is unhinged, but but in the office, yes, very theatrical.
Yeah.
In the office,
Yeah.
he's frightening because he's so disappointed and angry.
Right. And so quickly adjusts from happy Willy Wonka to completely neutral Willy Wonka to completely upset Willy Wonka, and then back to happy Willy Wonka.
Yeah. Yeah. And then we get our final line in the movie where he tells Charlie,
Don't forget what happened to the man who suddenly got everything he always wanted.
What happened?
He lived happily ever after.
Or did he?
Yeah, that's because it cuts off at that moment. You can't help but wonder.
Mm-hmm.
And I, we heard a bunch of theories, or we talked about a bunch of people's theories afterwards that he wants that young, impressionable child so that he can impose his will.
Yeah.
And he doesn't want anybody that's going to push back against him.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not just because he wants his recipes to be followed or whatever the movie would on its face say.
Right. Yeah. No, it's a somewhat ambiguous end. And just the fact that it just stops there. But honestly, that for me just makes it better. I like that about it a lot.
Especially because it goes back into the whole age appropriate thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you're a little kid and you're watching this, you're going to see the happy ending and that's all that's there.
Yeah.
But if you're my age and you're watching it for the first time, it provides sort of like another level to it that makes it, just like you said, it's a kind of a deeper story of like what did happen afterwards,
Yeah. So now the question is, now that you've seen this movie, number one, you'll get a lot more of the references and a lot more of the memes and all of that.
A lot more.
But does this make you want to watch the Tim Burton reimagining?
I want to watch the other two imaginings and definitely look at the differences. I also kind of want to read through the book and see what was in that book that wasn't in this version and why was Roald Dahl so mad. And then also there's a part of me that wants to read the sequel to the book because I want to know what the original story follow-up was to it. Like
because
I have
that came
all
out.
these questions.
Yeah, that actually came out after this movie, the sequel book.
Oh, did it?
Yeah, this movie came out in 1971. The book was published in 1972. One of the things, so Tim Burton's version in 2005 is the same story, but a different adaptation of the book. It's unfair to call it a remake because it's really not a remake of this movie. It's taking the original source material and adapting it again. And then there's the Timothy Chalamet movie that came out just last year
Mhm.
that takes place before this movie.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
so it's not, another
No.
Okay, I thought it was just another sort of retelling of this same story.
No, that movie is more about Willy Wonka before he had his chocolate factory and a younger
Gotcha.
version of him. So yeah, I'm glad though that you enjoyed this and that it makes you want to explore this more because it's like a fun, fascinating character and
Yeah,
kind of a cool
absolutely.
world.
Yeah. And I always like it when you get different representations from different creative people of it's the Batman thing, or actually kind of any comic book thing. When you kind of reset and you get new comic book creators, you get to see sort of their take on the same character.
Mhm.
And that's always fun to me. It's always fun. Like I know people talk about remakes and stuff. I don't know, it's kind of neat to see how two different people do Batman and what's different between the character. So
Yeah.
it'd be fun to see that too with this as well.
Well, and that's the thing, right? Like Tim Burton's version of this is very Tim Burton in a
Mhm.
lot of
Mhm.
ways. And he does also change some things from the original story. There's parts of his movie that don't exist in the book
Mhm.
as well. But there's other things that he's a little bit more faithful to. But, for the most part, all the story beats are kind of the same. So his pacing is a little different. The music is obviously different because he brings in Danny Elfman.
Mhm.
But it's cool to see. I think, I mean, for me, this is the definitive version of it. There's just something with the music, and I love Johnny Depp, and I think his performance as Willy Wonka is really cool, but he's not Gene Wilder, and
Right.
it's hard. If I had grown up with that version and then I saw Gene Wilder, totally different situation. I'm not sure exactly how that all would shake out, but I grew up with Gene Wilder's Willy Wonka, and that's just how I picture it now. So it's hard to
We had a
divorce from that.
Yeah, we had a similar conversation when you were on Horse Girls about The Crow.
Yeah.
About how when stuff hits at you a certain point in your life, it's just hard to not see that as the way that it is.
Mhm.
And if there's a new version of it, it's like, "Oh, that's cool that there's a new version." It's never going to be what it was because I can't receive it the same way that I did
Yeah.
then.
But it's also a different style of music and musical,
Mhm.
and just a different visual style altogether. Like this has a very visual style of its era,
Mhm.
and the limitations they had of just the ability to make things look the way they wanted or to create the visuals that they wanted to create at the time. So that I think plays into it too, and that adds to a lot of the charm because the music in
Mhm.
this and I think adding the music upped it for me. I think not having those songs in there don't necessarily make the movie worse, but I think having them there, there's just something about that you're already trying to create this otherworldly feel.
Sure.
So also adding a musical layer on top of that, I think just adds more whimsy to everything.
Sure. Sure.
In a lot of ways. So I did enjoy that. And it's tough. It's tough adapting things to film. Children's literature especially, I feel like is tough
Mhm.
to adapt from book to screen. You know, this movie was one of those where the author didn't like the adaptation. Norton Juster, who wrote the Phantom Tollbooth, famously did not like the Chuck Jones Phantom Tollbooth movie that came out in 1970. Even C.S. Lewis was worried about live action adaptations of his Narnia books for a long time and didn't want the BBC to do them. These all ended up happening, whether it was Mary Poppins or whatever. And a lot of the authors didn't like the adaptations, but they tended to do really well. And I
Mhm.
think that goes to finding the themes within something and tailoring them to a new medium. Sometimes
Yes.
that can work, sometimes it doesn't. And if you are the creator of it in a specific form, it can be difficult to let that go off and be something new that's out
Mhm.
of your control, which I think plays into it as well. And I think with kids' books especially, not a lot of children's book authors, in my estimation so far, write them with the thought of making it into some sort of filmed version, right?
Yeah, and I kind of feel like they shouldn't.
Correct.
Like, you
No, I
shouldn't
agree with
approach that story. It should be fantastical and not built with limitations into it.
Mhm.
And then let the filmmakers struggle their way through trying to make it happen.
Yeah. But I love the different versions of it, and I like that you can go and find the book and read the book and see kind of how it originally started and what there was there that made somebody be like, I
Yeah.
want to make a movie out of this.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of fun too.
Yep.
I'd be curious to hear if you get a chance to read the books or see the other movies. Let me know what you thought of them.
I absolutely will. Absolutely will.
But I'm so glad you got to see this one because this is a
Yeah.
classic.
Yeah.
And it's really one that I feel like most people should see at some point. Even if you don't love musicals or even if you're not sure you're going to like the movie, give it a chance, watch it because you might
Yeah.
find you really do. And Gene Wilder, we didn't deserve him. Pure and
And
simple.
I would tell you that if
great.
you aren't watching this as a guy who didn't watch this because it's a musical, it's not enough of a musical to not watch it.
Yes.
So even if that is your barrier to entry, it's not a good one. There's a lot of value in this movie. It's really good.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So now you do a show you mentioned, cause I was on there talking with you, the Horsegirls podcast. Let people know about that. What is that?
You can find the Horsegirls podcast at horsegirls.club. And basically what it is I have a couple of friends who grew up as horse girls, and I once, I think when I was younger, might have in the distance seen a horse. I have no relation or understanding. So they are teaching me how to be a proper horse girl by going through the horse girl media that they had when they were growing up, such as Saddle Club, which has been an adventure. But it's a ton of fun, and everybody should go listen to it.
Nice. Yeah, it was a lot of fun being on there too. I had a good time. And we're going to be chatting with them, both of them separately in a couple of weeks. So that'll be super fun. I can't wait. We've got some fun movies lined up for that.
Some really good ones.
Yeah. In very different movies too. Wildly different from this and from each other. You guys did, the three of you did a great job of picking just picking some great ones.
There is no way to put those anywhere near each other in the videos rental store.
Nope, they are from three different corners of that building, and I love it. Now, next week, I'm going in a little bit different direction. Coming back to the show will be Ash, and she wants to talk about, she is a Whovian who has never seen the Peter Cushing movie, Doctor Who and the Daleks.
Just watched that in the past year.
Nice.
I'm very excited for that.
So it will be Doctor Who, Peter Cushing as Doctor Who from the film Doctor Who and the Daleks. That's what's coming up next week. That's going to be a lot of fun. I can't wait because it's been a while since I've seen that particular iteration of Doctor Who. So, and now I do this show every week, and if you want to, you can hang out like Ash or a Stigma. Jenna's in here tonight. Amy, Daniora, Phelan, all hanging out in my chat room. You can be here live while I stream it at twitch.tv/tvstravis or on YouTube, youtube.com/@tvstravis. You can find the links there. And I do this 8 p.m. every Sunday, subject to change. So always keep an eye out on any social media network I am on as TV's Travis, and I post whenever there's a scheduling difference. I like to be flexible for my guests, but typically it's Sunday nights, 8 p.m. Eastern time. And then you can find links for this show and all the shows that I do at tvstravis.com, which does include links to like merchandise. You can get my silly logo on things like stickers and coffee mugs and whatnot, t-shirts. Or you can go to patreon.com/WYHS and back the show there. You get access to special parts of my Discord. You also get monthly movie nights with me as we go through the backlog of this show and do movie catch-up. And there's even going to be some special episodes that are going to be patron only inside that feed as I go through some miniseries and give my thoughts episode to episode on miniseries that I'm watching for the first time. So if you want to get any of that for as little as $5 a month, you can do that at patreon.com/WYHS. That also helps me do things like going to Dragon Con, which I did this past year and had a blast. So, which is where I met Tim.
It's always super fun, and you meet the coolest people there.
Absolutely. So definitely check out the Horse Girls podcast. What was the address for that again?
It's horsegirls.club.
Horsegirls.club. Check that out. And where can people just find you if anything else you're working on?
The easiest thing is at Remo Beware on Twitter. And then there's a couple other places you can find me from there. We do another show called Late Starters, which is a Pokemon TTRPG, and that's a ton of fun. And then I am on Animorphs Anonymous. So if you're an Animorphs fan, we're currently going through the other books of Michael Grant and Catherine Applegate, but it's definitely worth your time to come stop by.
Excellent. We'll definitely check those out. And thank you, Tim, for being here this week. This was super fun. We'll do it again. We'll find another movie, maybe something you've seen that I haven't. You know.
Oh, that'll be a ton of fun.
We'll find something. We'll definitely do this again. And until next week, and Doctor Who and the Daleks, just remember to enjoy your movies and let's be excellent to each other. This has been Wait You Haven't Seen.
We must remember there are many more important things. Many more important things. Offhand, I can't think of what they are, but I'm sure there must be something.
Got to be something. Who knows? Who knows what they are, though?